We are live. We are live. Good morning. So,
Good evening, Allie.
good morning, good evening. That's right. Dina, for Dina, it's good evening. For me, it's good morning. But
And sunny in both places.
I'm here with Dina Honor again. So yay. We had so much fun last time. We're doing it again. And what was our topic today? What did we end up calling it? I was trying to remember. Intersectional
Intersectional
can save the
feminism.
world, and also all the angry, lonely men.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think worked for both of our essays this
It was
week.
an invisible thread.
It was
That
so interesting because Dina and I have this like massive time difference, and it's not like we're like comparing notes. We're just doing our own thing, and then we had this plan to do this today together. And so, what did we check in yesterday or the day
yeah,
before?
I think it was last night when I was furiously trying to finish
Yours.
something,
Yeah, yeah.
and there was a
Uh,
nice crossover there.
it turned out that we were sort of, yeah, and it really is. It's interesting how it was similar in this. I feel like we were sort of trying to do the same thing in different ways because your essay is very much about, and I'll certainly be great for you to talk about it, but just this idea that feminism could really is a beautiful blueprint for men who are
Yes.
having a crisis right now, and that the patriarchy is not just causing pain for women, it's causing pain for boys and men. And I did my own sort of like my own conversation about that in my essay in a different way, but I'm interested in like what made you want to write about that this week, or like what.
I think I think after our conversation 2 weeks ago
Yeah,
and having several I don't know what the right word is. Not angry. I don't wanna say that they were angry, but it felt like a good time to take a step back and look at it from a different angle and look at it through a different lens. And I do try to acknowledge how brutal the patriarchy is for boys and men.
I know you do.
Um, and that somehow often gets lost in in the louder
All the
amplification.
rage.
Oh, exactly, and
Yeah.
it gets lost in my louder amplification of how the patriarchy hurts.
Well, I think all, not
Well,
just yours, but I think it does get lost in the conversation generally.
yeah, so it felt like the right time to kind of examine that, through a closer lens, and as you know, we talked about this the last time too, as the mother of parents to sons, it is something that we are immersed in every day. We are seeing it, we are hearing it, we are battling it. And so, yeah. And then I've often argued that feminism is something that it has to be a two-way street, that it is good for women, but also by definition, that means it's good for men. It's people are going in both directions. And, in this one, I used the analogy of a door opening, and it's like, once the door opens, it means people can walk through.
Yeah, yeah.
you
Hi,
know, it's
Dana.
and
Yes. I noticed last time, by the way, when I was trying to like look at comments at the end, that was just awful. So I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to really try to look as comments are coming in real time. Um, but yeah, I think that idea of, first of all, I do think that there's this misconception about what feminism is for many men.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that based on, and not probably the men that we're talking to, or the men who would show up for a talk like this, or like
Right.
men who would be reading our stuff. I'm not talking about those men, but I've had interactions with so many men who think feminism is like, oh, you hate men.
Yeah.
And it's like, I do not hate men. You do not hate men. I have a son who is one of my favorite human beings on the face of this earth. Like, that isn't what it is, right? Feminism is just the idea that everyone should have equality, and your gender should not give you fewer rights than a man,
Right.
like women, whatever your gender, you should not have fewer rights, however you identify, than a straight man. We should all have rights and dignity and,
And that,
freedom.
that idea too that women gaining
Is men losing?
necessarily means that men are losing,
Yeah.
and that women are gaining these things for themselves, not to take away
Yeah.
something. So, but what you said too, it made me wonder, what is our role then? I mean, how much responsibility do we have
In
to to no, I don't want to say educate because that sounds patronizing, but to make sure that
I think it's
men
important.
know that this is
Yeah, I think it's important. I've always felt like one of the main ways people heal, and I think I've been fascinated with that whole like microcosm macrocosm thing for as long as I can remember, because I just, society's culture is just made up of human beings. It's all it is, right?
yeah,
So if a culture is unwell, it's just full of people who are somewhere along the way something's not working. Um but I think talking to each other and trying to have conversations and trying to understand each other is at least part of what needs to happen for
yeah,
things to get better. I don't know how we can fix anything if we can't even define our terms, like. And I do think even between friends sometimes, you're having a conversation about, I don't know, whatever, and you realize, oh, this person's definition of like what it means to love someone is really different than mine, or their expectation in a friendship is different, or just even you go see a movie with someone and you
yeah,
loved it and they hated it. Like what, just like we're constantly, even with people we adore, there's going to be there are times where we don't understand each other, or we're confused by someone's reaction to something. I don't know how we fix anything if we can't talk about it.
yeah,
So I think having conversations like this and just saying like, hey, just so everyone's clear about what feminism is, what intersectional feminism is. Like I think we should be defining these things for anyone who might not know.
yeah,
I do think it's important. And I was talking about it last week too. I think that there's a real conversation about white feminism and how like there there have been so many white women who have had conversations about feminism and just completely left women of color, queer women, transgender women out of the conversation. And that is not it. It's like
yeah,
every single every single marginalized group of people who is not included under the umbrella of like having dignity and rights, and equality, we all need to be banding together
yeah.
as working together as a whole here. It's like, and I
And
think that
I think taking that time, like you say, to not just talk, but to actively listen. I
yes,
have trouble with this sometimes.
yeah,
Also, yeah, listening not just to wait for your turn to talk, to prove your point. And again, I'm guilty of this myself plenty of times. Um, but really trying to understand, and I guess this is a good segue into the idea of intersectionality. It's like understanding that we are all, even you and I, who identify as feminists and we're both white, and it's like we are not walking in the same shoes
no,
as what, even you and I, even all the things that we have in common, where we're all driving through, 100
exactly,
different intersections, if, to use the analogy. And that, yes, finding those places, those commonalities, and finding those places where we can connect is more important than ever. And like you, I do think that we have more points of connection than
yes.
not.
I do too. Janine's talking about reflective listening and just really, it's funny because as soon as I see that, I start thinking about this I went out with this guy like years ago, and he was really good at that. You'd have a conversation, something would go wrong. Like, I don't know, we'd be out somewhere and he'd do something outrageous, and then like I like later would be like, "Hey, that was really, I don't know, that made me feel really uncomfortable, or can we talk about that?" Whatever. And he'd be like, "Oh," I'm like, "I'm hearing you. Like, I understand that made you feel uncomfortable." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. It made me feel really like I just wasn't sure what was happening." And okay, I get it. Like, you were feeling that made you feel confused. And I would, at the end of this conversation, I would feel like, wow, like he really heard me. This was like amazing. And then, you know what? And then it would happen again. And I realized, oh no, he just like learned how to do this thing.
Yeah,
And it doesn't even mean anything. So, but yes.
this is
Yeah.
my husband who's in HR, and I always just, it's like, "Don't use your HR Jedi mind tricks on me. They're not gonna work."
Oh boy. I mean, I think we were talking about this last week too. It's like, I think that it is a very good touchstone to just kind of like, you know, the whole like, I was telling you after George Floyd, I didn't find myself, I sought out um a number of Black activists just to just be in these like different Zoom conversations. I did some book clubs, whatever. And there it was so painful because there would be a woman there speaking about, her lived experience. And then, I mean, almost every session, some white woman would be like, I don't want to be included.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not racist. I've never done anything racist in my life. I'm one of the good ones. I'm trying to help. And it makes me feel really bad. Like, I'm here. I signed up for this, because I'm trying to be supportive. And I think it's really alienating if you're going to just say all white people are racist. And I'm like, lady, just what are you doing right now? Like, just be quiet and just listen to what she's saying to you. You just made it all about you. And she's speaking. And it's like that whole thing of not all men, right? Like, you share something about what it's like to grow up as a girl in this world, as a woman in this world, what it's like currently when there's a gender pay gap, or the mental load that you're taking on for the entire house, whatever it is. And some man pipes up and says, not all men. And it's like, that, is a given to me. And I think to most of us,
Yeah.
it's
And,
like,
it's one of those
not
that
everybody,
we're all grown-ups.
but
We
yeah,
should all have the critical thinking skills to think, between the lines that, it's
there
not.
may be some people who are so hurt and have been so let down. And then there was what you wrote a few weeks ago, which I think is a very important point, which is like, all men are going to benefit from this system.
Yeah.
So there is that.
The same
And
way that I
it's like
benefit
all white
from
people
white
are
supremacy.
benefiting from this system. Exactly. So I think it's like a good touchstone for people to just keep remembering, when you get kind of like butt hurt, because somebody said something that's like triggering, just to like try to breathe a little bit and not, just see if you like take it in for a second and figure out why am I taking this personally if it wasn't direct, if it doesn't apply to me,
Yeah.
if,
And it's like, if you give yourself that space to reflectively listen, not just mirror what somebody is saying to you, like I used to do with my kids when they were, I sense that you're hungry. You- um, but we can learn so much, it's, we can, it's, the idea again about the, having a blueprint for how to get out of this crisis. It's, I used feminism as the framework for that, but feminism of course took that framework from, abolitionist movements, and marginalized communities have always set these, have always
Yeah.
drafted these.
Leading the way because they've been the ones who've needed the change the
Yes,
most and
and
needed the
exactly, and
yeah.
if we're smart, we all learn from one another,
Yes.
instead of
Yeah.
trying to just hoard, what we have,
I think
and
that's
launch that.
a huge part of I remember, like, Janine saying, like, uncentering ourselves is so
Yeah,
crucial. I think, like, um, I think I mentioned this too, but, there a few months ago, I was talking to this man who said that he had been talking to this woman who said, just, like, down with the patriarchy or whatever, and he said to her, "Well," and he was repeating this to me, "Well, if that's how you feel, then you wanna erase my voice." And I I was like, "Down with the patriarchy is not erasing male voices, that's not what it is." It's
kinda feel like we're drowning in
yeah,
in
like,
in male voices.
it's gonna be okay, like, your voice is still gonna be heard, I promise you, it's just you're it's that whole idea of a circle,
Yeah, there's
and
I think Susan and I were talking, or maybe it was us when we were talking the last time about those studies about women talking. Was that us?
that I
Susan? Might have been
that was
Susan?
probably Susan, that sounds like Susan.
And they've done those studies where when women speak more than 30% of
Oh,
the
yes,
time,
like, is it 30% or something? Yeah,
yes,
yes.
men estimate that they're speaking 75% of the time. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
massive disconnect there. So yeah, I don't think that, but also again, important, and maybe this is to how we have to talk about it, is like talking about a structure or a system is not the same as talking about men
men.
or
Yeah,
individual men. And
no.
lately I've been feeling a lot like if you, man or woman, if you hear the words misogyny or patriarchy and you automatically apply that to men, I think that's telling, you
Oh, I
know?
mean, there's so many things, I linked this article in my essay about women. I read it. It was like what was it, like it was about women and sex and women who are, like, over 35 having sex and, like
They don't do that.
yeah, right. Why would they do that? They're done reproducing if they're gonna have babies, so why although I had my kids after 35. My son was I was
Dried up
at
ovaries.
39, and, yeah, I was 36 when I had my son and 39 when I had my daughter, and I'm very grateful I had them when I had them. I I definitely had my business together in my head a lot more and in my heart than I would have if I'd had them, like, 10 years earlier. They definitely benefited, no doubt. But the in the article, she's a doctor, she's an MD, and she was writing about just women's health and sex and how, there's a drug that they were testing that had to do with, desirability in women, and they tested it on, like, male
Yeah,
animal it's just like, what?
yeah,
And I was also writing about I was with my kids, last weekend for Mother's Day
and French toast.
and French toast, we can talk about that. But, but we went out for dinner the night before, and it was just the 3 of us, and, it was just the 3 of us we were like the 3 musketeers, for so long, and so I was sitting there and looking at them, and they're my son is, like, way taller than I am, and my daughter's my height, and, they're just like, I'm looking at colleges for my baby right now, like, my son's already halfway through college, and my daughter's gonna be out the door heading to college, like, in a year, which I can't even think about because 'cause I'll start crying right now. So, but I was just sitting there at dinner with them, and I suddenly remembered when they were little, um, that thing I was writing about, like how many times, and it was so many times that it became almost like I was conducting my own, like sociological study. Like, is this going to happen again tonight? But I would take my son and daughter and talk when they were like 2 and 4. She's younger, or like 3 and 5. Like 5. I mean, just it continued on all the way. But from as early as she was verbal
Yeah,
and understanding, if they would both clean their plates, um, which rarely happened with her. She was like a kid. She was the kid that I was always following around, handing like, "Here," handing her
I had one of
food.
the yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a tofu hot dog.
Just have this while you're playing, because she just was not. And I really was not one of those like freak out kind of helicopter people. I really wasn't. I think I was pretty chill, but and I felt like they're gonna eat when they're hungry for the most part, but I at least wanted to
Sorry,
get, like,
people. Sorry,
nutrients in there, you know?
I just spilled everything in
Nice.
front of
Awesome. Well
me.
done. Oh, please.
Sorry, Allie.
Do you know how many times I've missed my mouth over the last whatever because I don't sleep anymore?
I'm
Um,
keeping it real.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, somebody okay, so but we would go out to eat, and, like, a server, all constant would be like, say to my daughter, my tiny daughter, "Oh, someone was hungry." Like, "Oh, you cleaned your plate. Wow, where'd you put all that food?" Like, and it was just I started to feel rage because, I'm like, Why are they doing this? She's like 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. Why is the server making a comment that my daughter has cleaned her plate, my son's cleaned his plate?
Yeah.
Why are we drawing attention to the fact that my daughter's done it? And so, I started to say things like, "My son has too. Don't forget to congratulate him." Because I, first of all, was trying to reframe it as like it's a positive, and not like you're you're being called out because you actually enjoyed your food and ate with enthusiasm. Here's a kid I'm trying to encourage to eat, and now we go out and she's being sort of like, "Oh, wow, there's this weird vibe to it, like, wow, oh," like it's so unusual.
So even at 2, she's already steeped
Getting
in
these
this culture.
messages, and if you think it isn't going in, it's going in
No,
for her, for my son, and
and
then
I think that I know that eating disorders amongst boys are on the rise.
yes.
We have, influencers who are whacking themselves in the jaw with hammers to
Yeah.
looks max,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
they're being fed this idea that in order to get these high quality women, they've got to, have a chiseled jawline. And once again, I'm like, oh, we know what that's like. Let us help you out of this because that is not a place that you want to be.
No,
I
but
mean, it's like I'm 55 years old and I still struggle with
yeah,
body
I don't
image and,
have
you
a
know,
single female friend who has not struggled
no,
with food
no,
or body dysmorphia or eating disorders. I do not have one.
no.
And I struggled with it through my whole,
And
teenage
this is
and
like
young adult.
we're aware of this.
Yeah.
I write about this. I talk about it. I mean, so like you know these things and
I'm 55 too, by the way.
yeah. She just looks a lot younger than me. No.
No, I don't. Stop it.
But it's yeah, so again, though it's like this is boys, men, like this is how we can help you. Like we
Yeah.
have been here, and especially now, oh my God, like now looking at the I have a weakness for like celebrity gossip.
Oh, yeah.
It's my guilty pleasure. I'm also excellent to have on a quiz team. But looking at all the pictures coming out of the very, very, very scarily frail and thin looking celebrities at the moment. And
Mhm.
I said to my husband, I was like, we lived through this. Like,
Yes, it's like the
I
90s,
thought that
you
we
know,
were done with this. And of course, boys are doing this, but they're not doing it to be super thin. They're doing it to be super, super jacked up.
ripped.
Um,
Yeah.
and yes, exactly. And whacking themselves.
But I mean, let's not imagine that somehow girls and women are now okay, because 'cause they're
Oh
not,
no.
yeah,
And
it's everybody now. It's just spread,
yeah.
I think.
And this is, yeah, I can't even imagine what it's, how much all of that is amplified with social media.
I mean, and that's another part of the equation too. I think, like, one of the things that was the other part of the I'll put, like, a little period at the end of the sentence with my daughter, but one of the things that I was so determined to do, having a daughter in this culture, was, like, not as best I could,
Yeah.
not put that on her at home, like, to be very on my game because I did grow up struggling with that stuff so much
Yeah.
and um really didn't start to kind of, like, overcome that until I was in my I mean, I'm gonna say I was probably in my 30s,
Yeah.
um, when I started to is that right? Or was it, like, late 20s, 30s, where I just started to I was doing, I started teaching yoga, and I'd been practicing for a long time, and my body kind of found its, like, happy weight, and I just wasn't I just was like, I feel good in my body. And I really don't want to have all this white noise in my head all the time about, am I this enough or that enough? Am I thin
Yeah.
enough? Like, I just don't want to be doing this. This is not a good use of my time and energy. And so I just was like, no scales in this house. I have a daughter. The scales are out. We're not having scales here, and I'm not going to ever let her hear me say degrading or demeaning things about my body.
Mhm.
I'm not going to diet in
Yeah.
this house. I'm not doing that. Like, if if I feel like I need to, I'm going to do that quietly. If there's something that I feel like I need to do, or like whatever, if I feel like I have a pair of jeans that
Oh,
I've
the
had
jeans.
forever, the old jeans, and if they start to get tight, then I'm like, okay, whatever, that's it.
I have
Um,
jeans that have moved countries with me 4 times
yeah. So
that
you
are
know what I'm
never going
talking
to fit me. They're never gonna fit me.
but I did not ever want her to see me
Yeah.
looking in the mirror and, like, scrunching up my nose, you know,
Yeah.
or, like, being in a store trying on a bathing suit and being like, "Ugh." Like, I just didn't want her to, no matter how I felt, even if it was like fake it to make it, I just did not want her to be getting that from me.
Yeah.
And, and no matter what you do, and no matter how vigilant you are as a mom, it's everywhere,
Oh,
no
it's yeah.
matter what you do.
You can't, yeah. So,
So,
I have 2 sons. I don't have girls, but I also, with my boys, was very careful
yeah.
not to use the word diet, not to, say I'm not eating the same things that you're eating, because I'm trying to lose weight. It might have been like, yeah, whatever, to be healthy. I have some bizarre food allergies, so that actually helped me. It's like, I can't eat that. Yeah, you guys have all of that. Um, did I succeed? I don't know. I like to think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insidious, right? I mean, it's
It's
everywhere,
everywhere.
and it's,
Everywhere.
like
And
I said, it's amplified with social media, and it's definitely affecting boys. And oh my god, and then you get into porn.
well,
Um,
that's what
and
before we got on here, Dina and I were talking, and she was saying, like, you know, it was the essay I wrote this week was, like, long, like, not in a bad way, just that it was like I don't remember what word you used, but I was saying to her, I had like I'd almost written like 2 essays in the one essay, and I had to take half of it and put it to the side. And the half that I put to the, because it just wasn't, it started the way the essay this week started. And then I got to this place where I was talking about porn,
Yeah.
and I was talking about, um, because that whole idea of like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
How do we go from these like little boys who love their mother so much
Yeah.
to, men who would grow up and drug and assault and film their wives, right? Like, how is this happening? Or how do we get from like these little boys who love their mothers to the men in that wine bar in Iowa? It was EJ's Wine Bar, and they're just, I don't know if you saw this, but there's just two black men at the bar enjoying a glass of wine there. And they just decided they were gonna, this was the day they were gonna, I mean, I'm sure they do it all the time. They were gonna cause trouble.
Yeah.
And they started to, say to the owner of the wine bar, they're staring at us, they're packing heat. They're like, they're intimidating us. Well, first of all, these guys, there's like footage of the bar. They didn't even know these guys are
Yeah.
there. They're literally just enjoying like a glass of cab. You know what I'm saying? They're sitting there, they're talking. They have no idea that these 2 idiots are behind them. And these guys are trying to get them killed. This is the
Yeah.
thing about white people. If you, that's like this, the woman who, I mean, we could go on and on about how many times like white people have like called the police on a black person for no reason. You're putting that person's life in jeopardy. This is
Yeah.
not, and you know what you're doing. It's not a game.
I keep waiting for a case for a black citizen to bring a case of attempted murder for somebody who calls the police like that. I
Yeah.
thought maybe it was going to be. Do you remember the I can't remember his name. The
The
man, the
woman in
bird.
Central Park with the bird with,
Yes,
yes, Christian. I feel like his name is Christian.
yes, and he is. He's got a lovely little side gig now. I think as a like
Yes.
bird watcher on PBS.
Yes. Yes. And
But I did wonder if
how
it
he's
was
filming all the flowers for him. Yes.
going to be
It,
him.
it's it's well, it's like what happens, right? Like
Yeah,
at some point, presumably, I don't, these men that turn into these brutes, these like people that are just lacking compassion at some point, maybe
yeah,
they were just these little boys that were like on their mother's hip. And like what's happening between that and I was writing about a lot of like that, the 4-year-old. I don't know if people were picking up on that, but a lot of things happened when I was 4 that were very confusing. And I lost a lot of people all at once. My whole everything changed. And I remember that feeling for whatever reason, that time in my life. I think when you go through trauma as a kid, you either remember everything or nothing. Like it tends to be, I'm oversimplifying. People like Janine could say more about that, but it seems to be that, Janine's a therapist. It seems to be, she's a trauma therapist, that, little kids, if something happens around that age, are either going to have very detailed memories or they're not going to really remember anything.
yeah,
And sometimes you meet people like, I don't have any memories before I was 10, and you're like, wow, really? Like, um, for me, that period of time from when my grandmother, I can remember so many things from before she died. I have so many beautiful memories of my grandmother. I'm so grateful. Um, and then all the things that happened after, I really remember. I have like very, detailed memories. And I happened to open up Instagram, and there was this man. Sometimes you just open, you're like, I don't follow this person. I don't know who this is, but there was this man, and he was just like white as a sheet. And he said, "This is like the hardest video I've ever made in my life." But my wife passed away during childbirth 2 days
yeah,
ago. Um, And I mean, he was just pouring tears, and he said, and our son is in the NICU, um, on oxygen. He was denied oxygen during the labor for some amount of time. And we have a 2-year-old son at home and a 4-year-old son. And I'm just trying to, um, it's a total shock. There was no sign, nothing was wrong. Like she just went in, everything seemed fine. And
And it's like your nightmare, I think,
it
too,
is,
and we've talked about this before, and to link it back to Tatiana Schlossberg, right?
yes,
Where I remember feeling when my kids got to an age where I knew they would have memories of me. So maybe 10. I like
yes,
to say they didn't have any major trauma. Um, but having that feeling of relief that, oh my gosh, they will remember who I am.
right. Yes, yes,
That if something happened to me, and it was just this kind of like, when your kids hit 18 and you almost like breathe this sigh of relief, like, okay. Like, and it was that same sort of feeling, like they will remember me. And
yes,
that's, yeah, it's like it was one of my worst fears. Like,
yes,
as a
yes. I'm just seeing because I'm trying to stay up with the comments and our
yeah.
talk too. So, Arlene was saying she didn't see the wine bar incident. So you can Google like EJ's Wine Bar. I think it's in
Yeah.
Iowa, and you'll see also, by the way, the man who and let us all go support this wine bar if we happen to be passing through or we need to like order wine for some reason because the owner of this bar, he did everything right. I want to like hug this man
Right.
because he called the police instantly. He gave the phone to his son. He said to the police, I have 2 patrons at my bar. They have done nothing wrong. I have 2 other patrons causing problems. I need backup. Like,
Right. Right.
and then he said to these 2 white guys, get out,
Yeah.
get out. And he then showed them the door. And one of the guys started to throw punches and he punched back. Um, meanwhile, these 2 black guys at the bar, they're like, turn
So,
around.
okay. So then let's just like go back a couple of steps. Like, what causes that?
Right.
I
And
mean, were they always
I'm
volatile, like
like,
human beings? Is it trauma? Is it trauma compounded by living in a system that tells them that they can do no wrong? I mean, Arlene said, to a degree, it's like in her experience that boys will be boys, white
yep,
boys
that is
are
we've all
protected. Brock Turner, we talked about the last time. It's like,
yes.
they're protected by the system. So is it that protection and the entitlement that comes from that protection, plus everything that's happening politically and all of the actual real trauma and challenges that are facing men?
I
It's like,
Yeah,
how do
I
you
know. I mean, I wish that
figure it out?
we could like, pinpoint. I mean, for me personally, of course, I think this is like a bit of a spider web and there's like
Yeah,
not going to be one answer. I think the main answer for sure is the systemic answer, right?
yeah,
Is that we're all growing up in this water where um boys are all around. You go to school and there is this thing and it's that boys will be boys is a constant that we're hearing everywhere, at home,
yeah.
at school, on the playground, that somebody's pulling your hair. If a boy's pulling your hair, he's kicking your
From
feet.
mothers,
What was that?
from mothers.
Our mothers,
Yeah.
same,
Some, I
from
mean, no, it's like
every
yeah,
yeah. And I
yeah.
think I was talking about my mom also, like I got such
Sorry.
confusing.
Speaking of my mom just joined. Hi, mom.
Hi, mom. That's exciting. I got really confusing messages from my mother about men as well. Like there was a part of her that, I think very much threw me to the wolves because I think she just felt like I can't protect you. I can't save you from this. And so you got to sink or swim. And brutal. I mean,
Yeah,
like that's just not my mothering style. But my mom was very much like would she didn't like to dwell on the painful things in life. she just liked to edit that out.
Yeah.
She spent a lot of time making everything look perfect on the outside. The house was always perfectly clean. Her appearance, like everything looked,
Well,
crystal
that I guess
clear photos.
that's what she could control.
Exactly.
Right.
But the things that were deeply painful, she drank.
Yeah.
That she would drink every night. And so, but the messages I got from her was just so interesting because I never knew which way it would go. There was a day one of her friends' husband showed up at our apartment. I was 12 and I answered the door. And this was somebody, they were at our house all the time. I had grown up with this couple and, they had kids who were my brother's age. So it's like 10 years younger. And the husband it was like, he's there for I was trying to like I had homework to do and whatever, and he just wasn't leaving. And I said, my mom isn't home, and he was saying, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful. And I just love you so much and whatever. And can I give you a kiss?
How,
And I
wait,
was
did you say you were 12?
12. And I remember feeling really uncomfortable because I had been trained to be polite.
Yeah.
And so I said, yes, and he leaned in and he gave me a kiss on the cheek, but it was like he stayed there far too long. And when he moved away, like my cheek was wet, like it was just not right.
Yeah.
And it was so not right that I ended up telling my mom when she got back, like, so and so came over and this was just it, and I was 12. I didn't even have words for why it felt uncomfortable, but it just felt weird. And I think that's what I said to her. Like, it just felt a little strange. And she said to me, no, that's right. And I have not liked the way he's been looking at you. And I'm calling him right now. She was furious. And
Yeah.
she picked up the phone and called him and said, do not come to this apartment when I am not home. Do not. And he was very much like, oh, she misunderstood me. I didn't mean I love her like a daughter. I would. And my mother said, no,
Yeah.
do not. But there were other times, as we talked about last week, where she completely let me
Yeah.
down, or times where she would, yell at me if a man was looking at me on the street as if it was my fault. So it was very
And I
hard to
think
understand.
we grew up at a time, I mean, I think the whole idea of teaching kids that your body is your body and that you can say no, and, even starting with siblings and parents, it's like, if this doesn't feel good, that's new. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a new parenting kind
Yes,
of
it is.
technique, that was not
That was
not
certainly not in the
around,
70s.
and it was also, we were taught that you respected the adults. I mean,
100%. Don't
you did,
yeah.
yeah, you did not question the adults. You respected the adults. It wasn't so much, seen and not heard, but it was, yeah, you were, I mean, there was a definite hierarchy in terms of adulthood and kids. And
Yeah.
then take that and then, expand it to girls are taught to be, conditioned to be nice, and then also to not trust their own instincts.
Yeah. Sarah's saying it's when old men wave dollars around at her young daughter to lure her over. The same thing in the 80s, but, you
Yeah.
know yeah, I mean, there were so many,
Oh,
last week,
sorry, I love that she takes the money.
yeah, it's great. I mean, I I had so many experiences too on the street, just,
Yeah,
moving around New York City by myself where I was grabbed and, had physical things happen.
yeah,
So there's that, but then there's these like subtle things. But the thing is that what happens, to get from maybe I think Jasmine was also saying like she needs the answer to this question
yeah.
too. I think it's like those things that are happening to us as girls, like the boys are seeing this too. They're
And they're
all
seeing, and often they're seeing that they can that other boys, maybe it's not them doing it, but other boys might be doing it without any accountability. It goes back to the whole he's pulling your hair because he likes you.
Yeah,
He's shoving you across the playground because he likes you.
yes,
Um,
yes, I
it's
did.
and it was, uh, and I think it was the slam that we did with Nan, and I think it was Rebecca was talking about sitting next to a disruptive boy
Yep. It's
because girls are I mean, we're used,
tasked with keeping
right?
them on track.
Yes. So it's like you're using, a calm,
That
girl.
happened to my daughter in
Yeah.
kindergarten and 1st grade where and I loved her teachers, and
Yeah.
they're overwhelmed. It's a
Yeah.
lot to deal with. So it's, shout out to the teachers, hardest job in the world. So this is not me
Yeah.
knocking teachers in any way. I think they're also part of the system. So it's not occurring to the teachers that this isn't.
No, I don't think it's conscious or nefarious. I think it's like, "Oh my god, I've got this, disruptive kid, and here I have one who's very calm, and maybe if I sit them together,
It'll
I can
balance
actually
itself
teach
out.
the other 35 kids,
Yes.
how what 5 times 6 is."
But I had to, because I used to volunteer in my kids' classrooms. So I was seeing what was going on. And my daughter genuinely she was like thinking it was her job and her
Yeah,
responsibility to keep so and so on task. Well, and she would say to me, "Well, he has a hard time focusing, mommy.
yeah.
He has a hard
So
time
again,
focusing.
so
It's
you have
helping
2
him."
2 completely different realities there, right? Even now, so your
Yes.
daughter, Generation Z. So growing up, so you've girls growing up who feel internalize this idea that they're nice and they're calm and they can help. They're the helpers, right?
Yeah. Nurturing.
And you have then boys who are still growing up without any real accountability,
Yes.
without or then you have and then just to flip it a little bit, my younger son in particular, would come home very upset because he said, "The teachers always blame the boys
Right.
for the disruptions."
Yes.
He said, "Sometimes it is," he said, "but sometimes it's not, and the
Yeah.
teachers will always blame us without kind of delving down." And that really forced me to look at look at it from a boy's point of view, and
Yeah.
he would say, the girls, they interact differently. So
Yeah.
there's just as much disruption happening, it's just in a not so visible way.
Yeah.
Whereas
Not as
boys do it
loud.
yeah, when the boys do it, they're, like, punching each other
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and not, like big giant puppies. Um, so it's more visible, it's more easily identifiable, but so it's in a weird way, it's like everybody's getting screwed.
The other thing that I was gonna say too is that the porn thing, just to go back to that so I don't forget to pick up that
Oh,
thread,
yes,
'cause
go
I didn't
on.
write about it this week, but I will probably I think I will. I wrote such a lot. I was, I really I thought it was going in the essay, so I did a lot of research and um the average age that a boy is seeing porn for the first time in our country is 10.
Yeah,
And, the average age period is 12 to 13.
yeah, and
And
that's having phones.
that, of course, it is. However, here's the other things, because both my kids had phones when they started middle school.
Yeah,
And there's this big push about banning cell phones at school, which I would be completely in favor of, except both of my kids have texted me from active lockdowns.
yeah,
And until we get it together in this country
yeah,
with that, I cannot be in favor of banning cell phones at school because it has been so, I don't even know. I mean, even with being able to text them through that, it's the most stressful, devastating experience I can possibly explain, where every single thing in your body, you just don't know what to do with yourself because your stress level is so it's not even through the roof. It's like to not be able to communicate with your kid in those moments would be the worst torture I can imagine.
yeah,
And so I cannot as somebody, and I was never someone, even after my kids had phones, we've to this day never ever had phones at the table. We've had, like, but my kids, I think I've always had a very open line of communication, and I think that that is something that, we were talking about a little bit too, is like raising children in this world the way it is with the cell phones and with the social media and all the stuff that we're dealing with today that we
Yeah.
weren't dealing with when we were kids. I had so many conversations with my kids about things that were not comfortable, like
Yeah.
consent and all, like, I mean, consent wasn't a difficult one for me to talk to them about, but other things that came up along the way, like when my son was 10 years old, I can't remember if I talked about this last week, but he came home and said, "What is a blowjob?" Somebody at
Right.
school was talking about blowjobs, right? And I was like, "Oh my God, am I doing like this is the conversation we're having right now?" He's 10. Like,
Yeah.
I did not think I was gonna have to explain that ever, really. I figured he'd figure that out a lot, like, way later, but we're having this conversation right now, so I did.
Well,
Um
I can tell you that in 4th grade, way back in 1980, Jimmy Callahan passed us all a note that told us what a pearl necklace was.
I still don't know what a pearl necklace is,
Well,
Dina,
I'll
so
tell you
there you
later.
go. I'll have to Google that up. Public school dilemmas, yes. Um,
Um, and
I mean,
the thing too with phones is that even if your kids don't have phones,
yeah.
somebody does.
Well, that's the
So
thing.
so it becomes, I think, a question of intervention and talking, you know what I mean? It's there. They
That
cannot escape it, so
is
you have to get in front of it and talk to, and especially boys in this
yes.
case, in terms of expectations, their bodily expectations, how they relationships, how they're going into relationships, how they expect, they're getting this bizarre cartoonish version of how sex works.
Yeah. I mean,
You know what I mean? And
I'm
they're never gonna live up to that because they're not porn stars.
and also, I had to have that conversation with my son as well. I think that what I don't wanna do is put this back on moms, because I think that happens a lot where it's like, "Oh, it's the mothers who are failing." The
Yeah.
mothers are not failing, okay? The
No.
system is failing.
The system,
The
exactly.
system is failing everybody. It's failing all of us. But what I will say is that, I had that conversation with my son as
Yeah,
well when the time came. You have to be having age appropriate conversations all the way through.
yeah,
But I had that conversation about porn, and I had a conversation with him about sex too.
yeah,
And I said to him, "Listen, um, first of all, porn tends to be incredibly dehumanizing
yeah,
for women. It's just they're treated like pieces of meat, or they're demeaned often,
yeah,
not all porn, I mean, but most of the time. And most girls and women are not going to enjoy their experience if you just stick it in.
yeah,
So you would not know that looking at porn and looking even at like movies, at
yeah.
regular movies where there's a sex scene, you would think a guy could just stick it in for 2 seconds and it's like the greatest thing ever, and the woman's like screaming her head off. I literally said to my son, "That is not how it works. You need to know where the clitoris is. And so
Here's a
why don't
map.
you look that up?"
Here's a map
Okay?
that came out in 1998.
You need to look that up, and that's what you need to be
Yeah,
stimulating and figuring out if you want a girl or a woman to have a good time. And if you have questions about that, you can ask me. Um, but I was not going to send my son out into the world thinking as another man
yeah.
who's going to think all he had to do was show up, with his penis, and that's it. And
It
there are far too many men who think they're just going to walk into a room with their penis and that's enough. Okay. I'm sorry. Doesn't work like that. Hate
swinging.
to like burst the bubble, but that's just not how it works. So, um,
So
um,
Janine said that parents don't seem to know how to talk to their kids about hard things.
it's
And I'm, like,
uncomfortable.
wondering if maybe that's what it actually all comes back to.
Yeah, it's
Maybe that is
uncomfortable. It's
that is
uncomfortable. It wasn't comfortable for me to have that conversation with my son.
yeah,
Like, and I think a lot of women will say to their sons, "Talk to your dad," or they'll say to if they have a husband that they're married to,
yeah,
they'll say to their, "Hey, it's time for you to talk to him about, like, the birds and bees. Look at him. He's growing hair in places. It's time for you to have that conversation." And my question is, and this is what I was writing about that didn't go into the essay, and maybe will be in next week's essay, but if your son seems to be attracted to the opposite sex, right? If your son is interested in girls, who do you think can advise him more, can tell him more about what he needs to know? You,
yeah,
a woman, or your husband, or whomever, whatever man is in his life, a man.
yeah.
I mean, probably you, a
Well,
woman.
in our family, dad is a very reserved Englishman, so guess who did
You get to have all the fun conversations.
have all the talks,
Um, yeah. Oh,
all
I
the
think there are book recommendations going on in the, Our Bodies, Ourselves.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Um,
also then take the mechanics of sex out of it
Not
and
all
talk.
porn, yeah, I mean, well, I just wanna go back to the porn thing for 1 second
Yeah,
because this is part of what I was writing about, and maybe I'm like but what I was reading about is the effects of porn on preteens, but it does skew much more toward boys
yeah,
who are, watching, absorbing, and often watching a lot,
yeah,
and what they are finding, and I think these are studies that are happening all the time now, is that it does lead to a very skewed idea about
yeah,
gender roles, gender norms, about violence, about, you know, normalizing that rape culture
yeah,
idea and rape fantasy, thinking that, like, oh, this is something that, like, girls and women like.
yeah. There
So
was there was an article I read about choking
yeah,
that
yeah,
scared the shit out of me
it's
because and it was okay, 2 things. There
yeah,
was one that there were doctors saying no amount of choking is safe. Like, you cannot put your
yeah,
hands or, an object or a tie or your hands around someone's neck, and even a tiny amount of, a time that goes by where there's no air going
yes,
to the brain can cause damage. So no amount of choking is okay. But what was sadder was the fact that they were interviewing boys or young men, not boys, young men who said, I don't want to do this, but I feel like I'm supposed to do it. And then they interviewed girls who said, I don't like this, but I feel like I'm supposed to accept it because this is what we've seen. This is what we've all been
this is what
exposed to.
guys
And,
like.
it's that kind of, you're not cool, you're not edgy, like, if you're not into this and you don't, and, so
Both
you had
parties
both
not
both
enjoying this, but
parties that did
thinking,
not wanna do this, but felt
yeah,
like it was something,
they're
they had
supposed to
to
do.
do.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And I think a lot of girls are, faking it. I mean, I had that conversation with my daughter. I was like,
yeah,
"Don't be doing that."
yeah,
Like, it's really good to if you are in a position with someone that you are going to get naked with, but you feel like you can't say what you like
yeah,
or what feels good, you're not ready to be getting naked with them.
yeah,
If you can't if it's too uncomfortable to say this feels good, that doesn't feel good, you
yeah.
know, then it's too soon to
And
get
even
naked with them.
just you having a conversation with your daughter saying, "Hey, sex is actually pleasurable
Oh,
for
I
women
told my
too."
daughter where everything is, and
But, I mean, that was something that yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it was it was, I mean, and I think again, it was, both parties, right? Both
Yeah,
sexes wronged on this one. Girls are not taught that they can enjoy sex, and if they do enjoy sex, there's something wrong with them. I think you were getting with this with the body count,
yeah,
in the essay. So there's something wrong with you if you enjoy sex, and boys are taught that girls don't enjoy sex, so it's something that they have to chase or something that they have to win,
right,
or steal,
right.
or be gifted. This idea of being gifted a girl's virginity, which is a total patriarchal fake concept anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
Sarah
but,
was talking
so
about
then too, you have coming at this from two completely different and two completely wrong angles,
yeah.
and everybody's missing out. Like, nobody's having good sex.
No, I think that, well, I mean, we could probably talk about any one of these topics for a very long time, but,
You need
also the AI images, Sarah's talking about, like, AI images where the Grok stuff, like, where they can, like, take an image of your child
Yeah.
and which is so devastating and enraging, and a lot of people are just not posting pictures of their children anymore because yeah.
But you have, those meta glasses that you can just have somebody they don't
Look
even
at
need
you.
to be pictures on social media. It could
No,
be somebody taking a video of
while
you
you're
with
walking
their
down the street.
while you're walking down the street. So I can tell you that in the EU, they are working to, if they have not already banned a lot of the Nudify apps because they're sane.
Because they're sane. Well,
Yeah.
that's the other thing that I was like, so, I mean, I don't want us to, because with this is what the reason I started looking at porn, and it's so funny that you brought it up because, again, we're, like, on the same page this week, but the reason that I started heading in that direction on my quest to sort of, like, how did we go from, like, these little boys who love their moms, right? To these men who end up like drugging and raping their wives. And what was playing in my mind, and of course, like we know that this content is being uploaded to porn sites.
Yeah.
Not that that's the only content there, but that that's where it's going. Um, because it's the obvious place. It made me think about maybe part of what's happening here with these men who are doing these things. It's not all men who watch porn are going to end up doing this to their wives. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying my mind started to I started to wonder about, if a 10-year-old boy sees porn for the first time and continues to watch through all of his like preteen, teenage years, and now we're like 20, 30 years later,
Yeah.
where this man is just been for his whole life filled with these images of women as objects. Women as objects, women as objects, girls and women as objects. I would imagine after a while, that's all you're seeing is just girls and women as objects, especially if this woman that you sleep next to is unconscious, then her personality is gone.
Yeah.
Her her essence of who she is, it's not there. She's just a body now. Um, it just made me wonder if like that's part, and this is not me like kink shaming anyone. That's not where this is coming from because it's like that's not, I just am trying genuinely to understand
Yeah.
how do we get from like little boy on the hip
Yeah.
to grown man doing things where he has dehumanized the mother of his children, like what's happening. Um, and I don't think there's any one answer, but I don't think that's helping. And I think that part of what needs to change and happen certainly is what is happening in the home. That's always going to be like the number one line of resistance, I think, for
Yeah.
all this racism, sexism, all of it is what is being modeled at home.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is that, even with talking to your kids and about sex is like taking the mechanics out of it. It's like there has to be modeling of, and you don't necessarily have to be in a relationship, but it's like
How we treat each
they
other.
have to see people, and we have to do it ourselves, model that behavior,
Yes.
that we want to see in them. Um Yeah, I think there are I can speak for my 2 young men, who cry,
Yeah.
who my older son, like, watches sad movies and texts me, and he's like, "Oh, How to Train Your Dragon."
Yeah.
Like, they are emotionally intelligent because they have a father who helped me model that behavior,
Yes.
with them. Um, I do think it's changing. I do think these things are, like, generational. I think
It's gonna take time.
it is, but yeah, we have to do
It's just
something.
hard for yeah,
Nobody
I
is
banged Arlene
yeah,
is saying, "Listen to the language, I banged her, need to get laid, she's a hoe."
nailed. It's very violent. It's very violent language.
And also the other one of the other things I was saying too is that, you know, there is this, that whole language of, like, the body count
Yeah.
conversation, and the first time I heard body count, I was like, "Are we talking about dead bodies? What are we talking about?" But body count is, like, how many men have you slept with?
Mhm.
You talk about a woman, right? That's your body count. And, I mean, men have a body count too, but they don't really nobody worries about a man's body count, right?
Yeah.
And if a man has slept with a lot of women, the words we tend to use for them, like playboy or like, "Oh,
Oh,
he's"
yeah, there's no derogatory word for men that s
no, or like maybe it's Peter Pan syndrome or like confirmed bachelor, but it's not whore,
that's
slut.
not yeah, that's not yeah.
We're not like, we're not judging his character. I
Right.
mean, maybe some of us are like, "Ugh," but, for the society as a whole, and a lot of other men will look at a man like that who's sleeping with tons of women and be envious,
Yeah.
and, uh, feel
And they lie.
yeah, yeah,
They're
well,
lying.
yes, um, and
Especially young men. I mean, don't you remember in high school, like,
yeah,
all the guys that would say, "Yeah, I slept with so and
this
so, I
person
banged her," whatever, and it's like, "No, you didn't,"
right.
like, ugh. And then who bears the brunt of that, right? I mean, who bears the brunt of that, the rumors? Not him.
Yes, yes. See, and that's the other thing too. Arlene was saying too that like women themselves will say, "Oh, he just needs to get laid or he needs a girlfriend." Like that's what it would take to keep him from being violent. Um
Ah, that's a
and
manosphere talking point, right?
yeah,
That men are entitled to physical and female partnership and sex, and that
as a
women
way of
would
releasing that. And there
if
is that
only women would recognize that, then men wouldn't be so violent. I mean,
that
that's
conversation. Yeah.
straight out of, Andrew Tate and
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's
And
in
then you have kids that hear this
blue
and
balls,
they
blue
yeah,
balls. Hello. Like
yes.
we
Or
all heard
I
about,
brought
"Oh,
I paid for
help
your
me out."
dinner.
You
So
know?
are we not gonna have sex because I brought you I paid for
Yeah.
dinner? There's a sense of and, again, there's that sense of entitlement that I think they're just steeped in.
Yes.
Um, fight, flight, or fuck.
I was reading, an article, like, there was an essay of this male therapist who was talking about, how women, in Los Angeles just wanna date men with money,
Yeah.
and it
Again,
was
straight out of the manosphere.
super. I was like, "Wow, I really, really hope you do not have any women
Yeah,
clients," although I'm sure that you do. Because when a man is saying that,
yeah.
what he's saying is women are for sale. Women are superficial and there is, you can buy them. There's a price. Like
Do
if you
you
have enough money.
follow do you follow, Uppity Negress on social
Yes.
media? So
Yeah.
and she's the first one I've seen that coined the term labor digger.
Yeah.
So, because she's like, "Okay, so, you say women are, gold diggers or whatever, but men are labor diggers. So men are partnering up with women to get all that, household care and emotional labor done."
Right. Oh God. Scott Galloway tells his sons always pay for your date's dinner to ensure you'll have sex with them.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't like Scott
Paraphrasing.
Galloway. I
No, I'm
know a
not a
lot of
Scott Galloway
men.
fan either. Sorry, but nope. Sorry,
I
not
think
sorry.
I think again, he like a few people, they have valid points about the challenges that men are facing. I mean, men, there are not all men, not all.
Yeah.
There are a lot of men that are having, in the midst of an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Not my fault. And
No,
it's not my issue to solve either. And
you can 2 things can be true at the same time.
yeah,
It's like, I think there is, an identity crisis happening for men. Like, well,
yeah,
what are we supposed to do? Like, we thought we were supposed to be, like, tough, whatever, but we never asked for that. I never asked
no.
for it's like that culture, and that's all about, soldiers.
Yeah. Well, and that is the system. I mean, that's what I was
That's what
talking
I'm
about.
saying.
That is the modern, what, if we want to call it
Yeah.
modern patriarchy or whatever, which puts boys and men and boys who turn into men into such a narrow definition of what masculinity is, and then teaches them that their masculinity is dependent upon my femininity or your femininity, as if it's relational.
Right.
And it's like, we need to teach boys that their masculinity is not dependent upon how a girl or woman defines her own femininity, you know?
Yes. I'm looking at,
Oh, we're gonna have to do a
yeah, I'm
whole
looking
thing on
no, I
trad
mean, these
wives.
people we're having, like, a little Scott Galloway, like, side conversation about, like, no, I'm not a fan. I think that it's by and large really common where you can find people who are saying a few good things,
Yeah,
and then if you start listening to and legitimately, like, good solid things that are
yeah,
like, "Oh, that's really a valuable, statement," or I that idea is
yeah,
great, and then there are, 12 other ideas that are not good at all.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
then
they
you
sandwich
realize
it. I read that somewhere. He was and it was a particular about Galloway, and it was like he sandwiches in the misogyny in
yes,
between valid points and valid statements, and he just sneaks it in, you know?
and that's part of the sort of it's like the funnel, the incel funnel, right? Of,
Yeah,
like and that's part of that whole high value woman thing. When you start hearing that language,
yeah,
you're in that funnel because they start talking and they're talking to women too.
yeah,
I was, I went down the whole rabbit hole too. I was like, okay. And I actually saw this, it broke my heart. There's a 19-year-old girl on Reddit asking people, what is this whole high value woman thing? Because I've been seeing so much of that and I try really hard. Like, I have respect for myself and I work really hard. And like, I don't want to just like, she's like, I'm sex positive, but I personally, like, I just don't, I like to know a person really well and I haven't been with that many people. And like, I don't know. And all these people were like, listen, when you start seeing high value woman, run. Cause
yeah,
that's the beginning of you're supposed to be feminine. You're supposed to be soft. You need to exercise and prioritize your man. And that you're on the trad wife, like you're on the runway. It's just a matter of time before the conversation gets really ugly.
yeah. The
Um,
other one is when I've had a few comments from a few men who refer to, females.
yes,
How
females.
do how would you discuss a female? I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm not.
We're not doing that. No,
We're just
no.
gonna delete that,
Yeah.
block," it's yeah. So
Yeah.
I think we need to have a conversation about trad wives,
Yes, I do too. Yep.
menopause,
Yeah.
and HRT,
Yes.
probably porn, more porn.
More yeah, we can do the porn one, like, I mean, there's a lot there. Oh, and also, like, that was the other thing too, is the EU versus USA policies on, pulling this kinda content down
Yeah,
when it's been discovered, and it's just the same old I think that was the other thing too, is just I think what's so disheartening here right now is the way perpetrators are being protected
yeah,
and survivors are just being like hung out to dry. And I do genuinely believe in my heart, if it were flipped and women had been like drugging their husbands and putting content up on the internet for other women to pay, I'm like,
Oh,
they would be arrested.
they would be hung, drawn, and quartered.
They would use those IP addresses.
Yeah,
Forget about whatever was happening with the site, whether they
yeah.
were being held accountable or not or whatever. I just know in my heart those women would
You don't
be
even
in jail.
you don't even to need to know it in your heart. There's the statistics about, women who kill their
Yeah.
partners as means of self-defense and their conviction rates and the sentencing they get versus the same for men tells you everything that you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I and then there is like the Epstein files, right? Where they're like blurring out the perpetrators' names and leaving the survivors'
Yeah,
names
I know.
there. And a
You
lot of
know,
them,
we keep talking about, like, because we go on these, like, old people after dinner walks now. And, I was like, it's like we've reached Hunger Games
yeah.
capital kind of villain, cartoonish, like, over the top, like, the corruption is so blatant, and I mean, you look at, you know, and I hate commenting on other women's physical appearances, but if you look at the MAGA look and the body, the body modifications that's happening, it's I was like, "Oh, I don't how," you talk about how did we get here, but, like, this is so now just beyond anything that we can sustain.
Yeah, I think that I think that that's the whole like women who think they're going to be protected by their proximity. And you would think that it might have, you see like Pam Bondi, you see Christina, and you see these people that are just like thrown off the ship instantly when it's expedient, convenient, whatever. You would think it would kind of start to get through, but it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. The other thing that we need to be talking about too is reproductive rights and what's happening here at the
What
Supreme
rights?
Court. And one thing too that is really we can't do it today because we'll be here for another 3 hours, but I just want to like say this out loud. Just I know everyone here already knows this, but um I can't tell you how many times I have had to say to both men and women that a DNC and a D&E, like those procedures are abortions.
Right.
And that if you are hemorrhaging because you're having a pregnancy related emergency, you're having a miscarriage, and you go to the ER in a state with a restrictive abortion ban,
Yeah.
it is a DNC that you need to stop
Yeah.
the hemorrhaging. A DNC or a D&E is after the second trimester.
Yeah.
Whether it's a DNC or a D&E, it just depends on how far along you are. But if you are hemorrhaging, that's what you need. You need a DNC or a D&E, and the abortion bans apply in those states no matter why
Yeah.
you need the procedure, whether you need it because you had a pregnancy with a baby you desperately wanted or you were trying to have an elective abortion. Either way, the DNC
Yeah.
or D&E is the procedure. It's the same procedure.
And
So,
doctors are hesitant to perform it because the law is never clear.
no, because
And
it's not
so
written by
they
doctors.
no, exactly. So the law is not clear and they wait too long and women are bleeding out in parking lots in Texas. They are I don't know how many I think it's Idaho has one OBGYN left or something crazy. I mean, doctors are leaving states with these abortion bans. So again,
Yes,
it's
because how can you
again,
practice
harming
like that?
everyone. All right. So abortion. And on that, we need to talk about how abortion is good for men.
Yeah. Oh, please, yes.
So abortion, trad wives, menopause.
Imposter
Yeah.
syndrome.
All right. Yeah. There's a
We
lot.
have a lot. We have a
We have a
lot
lot.
coming up, apparently. Um, this was wonderful. Once
Once
again,
again, I feel like, we could talk for hours.
We could. I will yeah, people are yeah, Arlene, that women are being jailed for having miscarriages. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean there's what's happening in this country right now is very much they're not hiding it anymore. And I think
No.
that that's kind of like what we can
Hi,
end on
Susan.
here is a there's a war on the rights that were already not equal
Yeah.
for
And
marginalized
just
groups.
to, again, maybe this is a great point to bring it back to intersectionality as well. Is like this is not new.
No,
Like,
none of this
Black
is
women, this has been happening, all of this, and I do it myself, right? It's like, Gilead and, to make a point, and it's like, it's not Gilead, it's the US. It's
it's
always
really
been the US, it's been happening to Black women, to Indigenous women, to immigrant women, to poor women, you know, since the beginning, of the United
for
States. So this is
forever from the
it's not
beginning.
new.
No, it's not. And,
Well, we
I
could
read
learn.
about the VRA, about the Voting Rights Act
Yeah,
and the whole history last week, and maybe we should do, like,
yeah.
a talk just on that. I mean, there's so much going on that it's hard to keep up, but this was great, and I
So I'll
really
see you next week.
we should just start doing daily, like, okay, what are we gonna try to unpack today? But, no, I think it really does help to have these conversations and communicate with each other,
Yeah,
and try to, first of all, for those of us like, like us, just feeling so much despair, but also, like, part of what I was trying to write about this week is, like, we're all in pain.
yeah,
Everyone's in pain, and that's, everyone go it's not easy
yeah.
to be a human being for anyone. We all go through incredible loss, incredible heartache, um, but also, like, kindness goes a long way, and the people who lose their humanity along the way
Yeah.
are that's the part that's it's so painful to see. And of course, it's not everyone. There's so many beautiful people in this world, of all genders. There's so many beautiful human beings in this world who don't want it to be like this. I do think there are more of us than there are of the people who are trying to
I think you have to. If I don't think that, then
find
yeah,
just devastating. But I really do believe that in my heart. I do. Uh,
all of those invisible threads, right?
yes,
Like
I
connecting
do.
people all over the place
And
in
I think
ways,
most
maybe in
people
ways that you're not expecting.
want I think most people are kind. I think most people are kind, and I think that most people are there's a lot of anger out
Yeah,
there right now. There's a lot of rage, and I think the more that we talk, try to communicate with each other, the more we can kind of clear up the part of this that is miscommunication
yeah,
and the part of this that, keeps us like screaming at each other. Because we don't need to be screaming at each other. We need to be, like, working together
yeah,
and trying to, um
yeah. With it's the rage is, it's like the rage is understandable and the rage is legitimate. It's
yes.
just directed at the wrong people.
Yeah. I'm not one of these people either. I mean, we could talk about that too, just like
Yeah,
women and the way you're not supposed to be enraged. How many women
yeah,
feel like, oh, you're not supposed to be angry or have a hard time expressing anger because you're kind of taught, like, don't don't be angry, like, don't be, and we have names for angry women and they're not very pretty, but rage is fine. It's a human emotion, just like grief is a human emotion that men are going to experience, just
yeah,
like fear is a human emotion that men are going to experience. Like, we're all going to experience all of it. And we don't
yeah,
have to be doing this to ourselves. We don't have to be saying, like, men need to be like this and women need to be like that. We don't need to be doing this stuff. It's making us sick.
yeah.
But I think we could talk for like 12 days. So let's just, this was so great. I want to thank everybody who showed up to
Yes, thank you, everybody, and it
be
was
here.
just, yeah, it's so nice to read. Yeah, it's just all good.
Isn't it great? It's
It
great to be in
is.
conversation with people who can join live, and it's great to
Yeah.
put these conversations out, into the ether. And I really appreciate, and then the comments that come in are great because it's
Yeah.
like it keeps this conversation that's happening here
Yeah.
like fresh and takes us in different directions. So thank you to those of you who are able to come live, and for the people who listen later, like, thank you too. The comments are always great, and we'll keep it going.
And we'll keep it going. And thank you for inviting me.
Hey, Dina, you're a joy. You're a joy to be with. So thank
Yes.
you
All
for
right.
coming.
So I will see you soon.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right.
Right.
Have a great
Bye,
day.
everyone. Have a good rest of your day. See you soon.